Hey, what's up, guys? It's Coach Gaglione here. There's an edition of the Powerlifting for the People podcast. I'm your host, Coach Gaglione. We got an interview today with none other than Thick John Wick, also known as that other Asian guy, and our training partner and good friend, Sammy Chu. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Doing pretty well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we're trying to get a few more of our kind of teammates on the podcast to kind of discuss their kind of just, how they got into powerlifting, kind of how it's maybe influenced or changed their life or what kind of benefits they've seen. So I know it's been a couple of years now that we've been kind of, training together and started training as you're one of my kind of main training partners, helped handle me at the Arnold, which was great in the last couple of meets. It's been really awesome. So, but I want to rewind a little bit and maybe just talk about maybe your initial kind of athletic background, kind of how you got into lifting, and then we can kind of segue into like what made you decide to come to Gaglione Strength and just kind of give competitive powerlifting a try.
Sure. Well, I was you and I have some shared background. I was a, high school athlete. I played football, I wrestled, I even ran a little track, played some badminton. But I was always, throughout high school, I was athletic and played sports. And then like a lot of people after, high school and pretty much after I got a car, you know, um, stop having a focus on any kind of fitness or physical activity. Although I was in construction for many years, so that helped keep me active. And then my fitness levels and my health really took a drastic turn after 2000 the year in 2007. A couple key changes happened in my life. One, I had transitioned from working a, everyday construction job and commuting and being, just having inherent activity in my day, to an administrative job. And also that year, actually it was a couple weeks after I had started the new job, I got hit by a car as I was walking down the street as a pedestrian and, actually fractured my sacrum. And the solution, back then was, one, medicate, and there was really no surgery or treatment. And really, just rest. I kind of equated rest for many years to mean, hey, if you're in pain, just stop moving, sit down. And, that coupled with, a transition to, a quote unquote desk job, the combination of those two factors, and then also, having a family, my son was born in 2004, my daughter in 2007, you know, so time was at a real premium. I was working a lot, all these factors added up to me just living a extremely sedentary lifestyle. I was also at that time, a heavy smoker, very much had a poor relationship with food, which I've only, really, began to unpack over the last several years. And, so just for reference, at that time of the accident, I probably, you know, weighed around 230 pounds. And at my heaviest in 2012, I was up to 360. So I put on a lot of weight in a relatively short amount of time. And then I had this realization. I was really busy with work, and I worked at government at the time and was working around the clock after Superstorm Sandy hit, and realized that just started to feel it. I'd always been like a big guy that moved well, and then I just realized like just a big guy now. I'm just really overweight and unhealthy, and had a realization at that time, in my mid 30s, mid to late 30s, that, there were really two courses for me: really get a handle on my health and do something about it, or just, wait for an incident or a diagnosis, right? Whether it was a heart attack or, diabetes, or all the, common maladies that come from, being overweight and out of shape and smoking on top of it. So, I started, my logic, and John, you've come to know my logical thinking over the years. My logic at the time was, well, where should I start? And I realized that most animals, that lived on land that were my size had four legs. So I said, why don't I try the water? I wasn't really interested in running, and I always liked being in the water. So and so I started by taking I purchased like a 20 pack swimming class at New York Sports Club in Deer Park, which wasn't far, which was kind of in between my office and my house. I could get there easily, and it was also swimming was also really nice because you couldn't have a phone with you. By that time, I was super attached to my phone on a every minute basis, like
Yeah.
literally around the clock. So, started swimming, and it was great and a lot of fun. And as part of that membership and that training, that package, I got a free training session. So one of the trainers, we just, hit it off. In fact, I was sold that membership to the gym by, John Archibald, who's our training partner, my everyday, training brother, who, I see probably the only person I probably see more in life is my wife and my kids. Although she might argue the opposite. And then there was a trainer there, this guy Jonathan, who became a very good friend, who said, "Hey, you're a big guy. You should take advantage of your free training session." Took a free training session from him, and he started me off, and it kind of, I guess it makes sense now. He started me a lower body. So let's focus on your lower bodies. Like, you got big legs, you got big lower bodies. Like, let's start with squats. And then I started lifting with him, and I lifted back when I wrestled and played football, but things were very bit different back then. We bro lifted, like we did, military press, bench press. Squats weren't much of a thing. We do some curls. So I never really had like a training protocol, and it's very different now, as you know, and you're a big part of that world, which is great. So I really fell in love with it, and I trained with him for a while, got pretty proficient. Started squatting with him, got up to about 3 plates pretty quickly, and progressed over the years. And then, fast forward to 2019, 2018, actually 2018 is when I started to realize I was, what really got me jazzed up was just putting more weight on the bar, getting stronger. I was never into bodybuilding. I never was like, it never excited me the thought of like, getting ripped or having abs, or it was more about just being healthy and being strong. And I like getting stronger. And then I hit plateaus. And I had actually scoped out, your gym, back, in like 2018, just because I was looking for a place to get stronger. I had no awareness of powerlifting at that time. But I looked at the schedule, and I realized, because it was schedule driven, that it was going to take some configuration and commitment on my part, to make it work. And you know how I am about scheduling, and how busy my life is, how many commitments I have. So it wasn't until 2019, that I finally came in and signed up and started training. And I'll stop there, but I think, like I broke through those plateaus and then some.
A little bit more, just a little bit more than Devin. So, what I guess when you first, stepped through the doors, and what was there like kind of a moment where you felt like, now, okay, like what I guess made you decide, okay, maybe I want to just do that for, I think he did like that first meet in-house, which went really well. So what was the kind of transition like from just kind of, you just focus on strength to like, oh, maybe I'll throw my hat in and actually do like a competition.
So I remember you asking me when we first had our first consultation if I wanted to compete, and I was like, I was so unaware. I was like, compete in what? It's funny. I'm probably one of the few people who comes. I had no idea who, Larry Wheels was or anything like that. I just want to get stronger, and I and but I would say prior. So there were two major points where I'd say like it was my transition of kind of turning a corner and becoming more serious about being competitive. One, it was really early on, in the first couple months, where I never really deadlifted before I
Real
came to
bench.
your gym. I benched, of course, or at least what I called a bench press. It's very different, a real actually bench pressing, and what most people think they're doing when they're bench pressing. Um, and I certainly squat was my bread and butter. But I never deadlifted, and if you remember, I had a lot of struggles deadlifting in the beginning. It was a new movement to me. I was, I would say I was actually probably not. I haven't lost that much weight, but my body was very different. Even
Shape.
even a few years ago in terms of body composition. And it wasn't a comfortable movement for me. And I hurt myself. My back was really sore when I first started deadlifting, and I had a chronic back history of back issues. And I remember calling you, or texting like, "Hey, I can't make it today." Like I couldn't. Like my back was out. I knew the feeling. I was like, just like this was. I was actually in my mind doing the right thing. It's not. Me. Like I always love to train and get in, but I was like, there's nothing constructive for me to do in the gym today. And you said come in and we'll work on some things. And you spent that session working with me. Pretty much the whole session. Showing me some things I could do. To get my back, support my back, strengthen it, work through, the pain, proper stretches, that eventually evolved into the big gray band hanging upside down, which I do a lot less of now because I found other ways, but that was kind of just an eye opener of like making sure, just being mindful of spinal decompression. So that was a big moment for me, and just like saying, hey, I could always find a way. And
Yeah,
and then
I want to pause. I think at least for me, I think that was like a really critical moment for you, maybe like the most critical moment, because I think a lot of people at that point, their first sign of like a little discomfort, the first sign of a little, even with the best training program, you're going to get some dings, you're going to get some, I know you've been dealing with like the forearm thing. I got like, we all have like little issues and nagging things. So I think it's really, really critical that number one, people listening to this, that like at some point you're going to get dinged up in some way, even if you're training, you know, you got the best trainer, you got the best rehab protocols. Just stuff happens sometimes, and there's always something you could do to get stronger. And I think also to your point, I think that going back to what you said before, I think people really like underappreciate like just the ability, just general movement and like what the blood flow and what that could do for your recovery versus just being completely sedentary. So if your goal is body composition, if your goal is just general health, I think just finding ways to move is really important versus just sitting up on the couch. So I just want to kind of highlight that for people listening. So kudos to you. I think that was because a lot of people don't get past that initial hump, I think,
it,
when it happens. So
it was a critical point for me. And my personal mantra has become, and people really love it, is train hard, recover harder. And I think that's, as a lifter in my, now, I guess I'm gonna, once I hit 47, I guess now I make the transition to late 40s, from mid 40s. I have to this day, since I've been training with you, knock on wood, as my mom would say, never missed a session to injury. I've traveled and I had schedules, and I'm very, very big on consistency and my commitment to training. I keep everything. I've told you this, like I put every training session on my calendar. I see it, my assistant sees it, my family sees it. If I can't make that time, I move it on the calendar to make sure the session is still getting in. But I haven't, since that day, I have never, missed a session injury. That's not to say I haven't worked around those things, but, it also was an eye opener for me in terms of the importance of recovery. And, when people ask me now, like, how do you do this? Like they look at the training, everyone sees the training, everyone watches Instagram, and sees the lifts, and, that's great. But, it's a lot of stuff people don't see, the recovery stuff that I'm also, really militant about in terms of consistency, whether it's, getting, body work done or acupuncture, or as soon as I feel something, going to the PT or communicating to you that I actually have something going on, and you can recommend to me to do, this or make an adjustment or ease back, on volume or weight. And I think that's a huge part of, the long-term success story. It's not about, it's not about muscling through things. It's about being smart about things. It's, and it's also, getting yourself to the gym, even when you're feeling, something is doesn't have to be for you to muscle through it. It's for you to get in. And if you legitimately can train, get in to do something that's recovery related. Like don't lose that time, because, everything you commit to recovery will come back, in spades, on the training progress side.
yeah, I think that's really well said. And I think another thing I want to kind of highlight too, you kind of mentioned your age. We do have a lot of masters lifters, 40s, 50s, 60s. We got some approaching 70. What are some things I think that we've kind of done, like I guess inside the gym, I guess from a programming standpoint, because obviously kind of what we do it's a little bit more on, I guess, what I would say, more on like the unpopular side in terms of like most lifters will train with very high frequency in terms of squatting, benching, and deadlifting with a straight bar multiple times a week, very specific training. We'll utilize more kind of bands, chains, calming resistance, reverse bands. We haven't been using the specialty bars as much, but that's something actually I want to start to kind of throw back in the mix a little bit more often this cycle before our next contest. And also, we do like a good amount of what people would consider maybe bodybuilding training for accessory work. So I guess what are some things that you found have been like beneficial? I know there's some specific movements, some specific machines, but and I know that maybe you're not as you haven't been in it as long as me, but you haven't maybe seen some of the trends. But I guess what are some things that you find, I guess, have been really, really benefited your own lifting and just maybe kept you healthy in terms of like the exercises that we're doing and like a programming standpoint?
But I think just having cycles, right? Being conscious of that, you know, you train differently depending on what you have coming up and what you're trying to accomplish. And that's a combination of, programming as well as, a degree of, I think Dave Tate says the whole time, having some auto regulation,
Yeah.
right? And then communication is really important. So, obviously, training when you're training for a comp in the last few weeks is if you train like that all year round, it's for someone if you're younger in your 20s, we know we know we have mutual relationships and friends that can do go in and I'll go off program and PR every other week or even every week and deal with it because they're in their 20s. But at my age, I would never be able to get away with that. And treat most of the year or when you're at least not in competition prep, as building, and know what you're building, right? You don't build a strong structure without a set of plans, right? So you have to know what you're building. You have to know how you're going to build it, and you have to do it, and you program it. And of course, just like I've been construction my whole life, so just like on a construction project, sometimes you have to make a judgment call. Sometimes something comes up that was unexpected, and you have to deal with it. You have to accommodate to it. But for the most part, you're gonna stick to the plan, and then auto regulate as you go along to try and stick to that plan as effectively as possible. And of course, when you go into prep, you've done the work, you built the foundation and the structure you need, and then then you could with confidence go into that last 6 to 8 weeks, and just train like a savage, and and then hit the platform at the right time. So that's all been a learning process, and specifically pairing the right accessories, right? You can't just cherry pick, right? You can watch YouTube videos all day long, and I've learned a lot from YouTube videos and from Instagrams and accounts and from talking to my peers. But at the end of the day, you can't just cherry. There's no silver bullets. You have to put it all together into some sort of structured plan and methodology to get you where you want to go. And I think that you and I have together have been a really effective combination for that because I listen to you, you listen to me, and we're very I think we're very clear about where I'm headed and what I want to accomplish, and I think I've more than exceeded what I set out to do. My goals, were,
500
my
pounds, 500-pound
yeah.
squat was the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a 500-pound squat. I got that, the first meet, and then you asked the question before that first meet, which I was a little, I was like, oh, screw it. I'm pretty loose, about it. I was like, yeah, sure, that's fun. And then I forgot how fun it was to compete in something. And then the competition itself was so great because how many sports can you participate in where literally everybody cheers for everybody? Like,
Amazing.
Yeah. It's like you get to be a player and a cheerleader all at the same time. And, it was so great and invigorating, and the community around it was so fun. But that was the 500-pound squat that came really quick, and then the 1,500-pound total, which I thought was a really high aspirational goal, is now well in the rear view mirror. Now I'm kind of resetting to a place where for the last after doing some stuff and setting some records, I've kind of returned, come full cycle and just come back to having fun. And the last few weeks, you've seen the impact that's having. I know you were away this Sunday, but like my squats are in place.
Yeah,
Like, just
I
like
looked,
I'm in a different
looked
place
great.
just from having fun.
Yeah. So I want to kind of harp on that a little bit because I think we all go through I think kind of there's like a natural like kind of progression when you start competing. Like you don't really have maybe a lot of expectations initially, and then you have these very like, I'm going to do this federation, I'm going to do this thing, I want I want to do it this way, and then I think at some point maybe we start to like, okay, you know what? Why did I kind of start this in the first place? And then you get, like you said, you focus a little bit more on like, enjoying the community, enjoying your training partners, enjoying like just the thrill of being on a platform, enjoying like not being so like, kind of majoring in the minors. And like I said, just like, I'm just going to like do my best and auto regulate and then have fun at the meet. But for people that are maybe just starting out, or maybe they're on the fence of competing, what would you say kind of to those people, or if you have maybe some advice for people that are maybe just starting their journey?
Yeah, well, I definitely have gone down that road. You know, starting out, I just wanted to get stronger, and then you start to you develop a peer group, right? And I'm a very social person, as you know, so I see what other people are doing. But the truth of the matter is, like in terms of external validation, you know, very early on, like people that are not familiar with what we do as powerlifters, like are like everything seemed crazy, right? As soon as you're in a position where you're like squatting 4 plates, bench pressing 3 plates, deadlifting 4 plates, like everyone thinks you're nuts and crazy and gonna kill your knees and break your back and all those things. So like it's all right. There's no like the things I'm doing now are beyond that. Like people are like questioning like if it's reality, right? Like is this even real what you're doing, right? If you're pursuing like I'm realistically pursuing a 700-pound squat, like coming into 47 years old, for people to that's like can't even wrap their head around it. So then you get into the powerlifting perspective, and you're looking at the powerlifting lens, and then everyone goes on open powerlifting and starts to slice and dice and figure out, well, how are they the best, and then you're in the different federations, whether it's RPS or, I noticed like on the USPA that I could, I was spitting shot of like records and in the drug tested division, as well as as well as winning the competitions, and that was a really fun thing to do. But after time, it starts to, that tail starts to wag the dog, right? And that's the, when that, and I became a victim of it, just like so many people do, where like those things become the priority. And, unfortunately, it was the USPA situation blowing up that I had invested a lot in this federation, and then they've had all their issues, and I'm not judging anyone else that's made decisions on their own, but I've just made my own personal decision that's like I don't want to be associated with them anymore. And I was like, hey, I put all this time, like what do I do now? And and for other reasons, there were other reasons I didn't want this federation. For other federations, you just want to wait and see. There's safe to say there's transitions going on.
Yeah.
you know, I just came back to like, hey, what am I doing this in the first place? In the first place, it starts like I want to be healthy, right? I wanted to be healthy, and the reason why I'm doing this to be healthy is because it's fun, right? Like people run to be healthy, and that's great, and they love it. And like I hate running, like I think it's terrible. So it wouldn't be sustainable. Like, I tried an Orange Theory class, like just and it wasn't fun. I was like, I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to do it. This is fun. I don't when I come to the gym, like I am excited to come to the gym. I'm excited to lift. I'm excited to be social, to be with my friends, my peers, my training partners. So I returned to that, and really, with all those goals and the response I've always had to people, for a long time, and the response, kind of the conversation I have with myself is, hey, you didn't reach a goal, or this goal might take you a year or 2 years. My question I always ask people is, when you reach that goal, are you going to quit? If the answer is yes, then you probably should find something else to do, because this is not fun enough for you to be doing it. And if you're not going to quit, then who cares? Just keep going.
Try
Like you'll
again.
get it the next time. And if you don't ever, so what? If you spend your whole life doing something that you love and enjoy and have fun, and that goal is what keeps you tethered to this path of doing it, so be it. And that's the success story in and of itself.
Yeah, and I could certainly relate to that. Like for me, it was like that. As you know, and people that have maybe been listening to me for a long time, like kind of that 2000 total was like kind of the monkey on my back that I just kind of couldn't seem to shake for a really long time, even though I felt like I was capable of it, especially at my heavier weight classes. But Since like last year when I finally broke it, I just feel like I've been kind of on a tear these last couple of meets and just been just I've been, last 3 meets I hit all-time PRs every single time. It's been like, I've been kind of on a roll. And I think a lot of that was kind of just now is like kind of the pressure is off. I don't feel like I need to PR or I need to hit a certain mark. I'm just trying to get a little bit better and not really too worried about, a specific number. So it's been kind of fun. Like I said, I kind of, I keep talking about my retirement, but it seems like I'm still got a couple of meets in me, so we'll see. but yeah, I do think that the fun aspect is overlooked. So one thing I wanted to highlight with that specifically, because it's not as commonplace. I know, like in our microcosm of Gaglione strength and Long Island powerlifting, like when I started in geared lifting, like training crews was like really the only way you trained, and now with raw lifting. So can you just speak a little bit about like the important, because we have a very like regular training partners, a very consistent schedule. Even like, I try to, people try to get in even when they're not competing and stuff. So can you maybe just talk about the importance and the benefits of a crew? Because I think a lot of people, they may not like you don't know if you never had it, but can you maybe just talk about training partners and the training crew and
Sure. Sure. I have the best of both. Really have the best of both worlds when it comes to that. I have John Archers, Archibald, who I've been training with, now, for over 3 years, almost every day, more days than not, right? We train, together on most days, 5 days a week. And I train 6 sessions, 5 of them are with him. I do my leg accessories, on my own because, if you've seen John Legs, you know why I do that on my own. Just kidding, John. I love you. But we also have our crew, and I would go as far to say, like, for me, it's become, more, I would call more of a training family, right?
Yeah.
You could be in crews, right? You could be in a crew, you could be in a work crew, and then get assigned to another crew the next day and go mix in with some other crew, But there's so many layered benefits to it. One, just you of course you're our coach and we all look to you, but over time you essentially get a bunch of other coaches, right? People looking out for you, people who know you, people who see you, week in, week out training. They say, hey, you got to get a little lower, try this. Why is the bar there? Your position was off, you're a little crooked here, check your foot placement, right? So you get all that input, and and that, that kind of, well, there's two things. There's always people who are going to give you advice, and it takes time to really gain trust with people. So one, trust that they know what they're talking about, and trust that they have the best intentions for you, right? And so that's like a fine wine that only gets ages and gets better over time. And so the more time you spend with your training family, the better, the more rich it's going to be. And I think we definitely have that. And the other part of it is just the environment. I mean, what I'm doing and I've done it both ways, right? So I go, and I've had access, all things being equal. Like I've gone and tried to do, big squats, in monoliths by myself or with just me and John, and like not having the spotters, not having, like, when you're starting to move, anything north of 500 pounds, like just in the back of your mind, like if you're, unless, just thinking like how, and the impact and how dangerous that is, like the fact that I could come in and be able to know that I'm going to be safe, that people are looking out for me, and also being driven by like, hey, that the other component is competitiveness. We're all competitive, right? I'm gonna lift more. I'm not gonna let them down, right? Or or I'm gonna put on a show, and like that. As long as you're doing it in a healthy way, all of those factors come together to really drive you. And it also keeps you accountable, right? Like, because we need each other, right? So we all know that. I think everyone knows that feeling of or can point to that instance where they got somewhere because they knew someone was waiting for them, versus the knowing that if it was just them, they would have deferred or stayed in bed or found something else to do or found a reason to not go. So everyone keeping everyone accountable and on point is I think just another layer of it. But there's so many benefits, and it's very, very different than trying to do this on your. And I'm not saying people don't do it successfully. We see a lot of strong people that train in the basement and or train on their own or just. But I for me personally, and I think for a lot of people, this is brings a lot of factors together that create for the optimal environment for for success and for fun. Again, but going back to the fun component of this, this is for 99.999% of people that do this, is a hobby. right? This is what their pastime. This is what they do, in their recreational time. This is not going to be their career. And, you should get that satisfaction out of that. And all of those factors contribute to that.
All right, awesome, man. I guess, do you have any, last points or parting words for people, advice for people before we let you go?
I mean, just don't be in a rush. I'm doing things now that I never would have contemplated that I could do. I think all the success that I've had came from being reasonable about where I could get to in line of sight. And I see so many people that come in, especially younger people that want to rush and don't give it time. Just coming in. So we'll see people come into our gym, right? And they say, "Oh, I've seen you on YouTube. I've seen you guys train," and they think they're going to come and glean and like get the silver bullets or the little tidbits that are just going to like be the secret. You know, the secret. There are secrets that get exposed, but they come over time. A lot of them aren't unlocked, overnight. And I would just say, have fun and take your time. Set reasonable goals, hit them, and then set new ones, hit new ones, and just keep training and make sure you just stay consistent and take care of yourself. Like maybe that's the number one thing. Take care of yourself. If you're not taking care of yourself in the other aspects of your life, whether it's health, nutrition, recovery, you can't expect your lifting to overcompensate for all those. And everyone should always remember that this is a sport that at its best should be making you healthier and happier.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, especially younger lifters, we tend to like overestimate what we could do in the short term. But like to your point, like you said, you're like light years ahead of where your lifetime goals were, but we underestimate what we could do long term. So I think that just being a little bit more reasonable with your short term goals, especially being a little bit more process oriented. I remember in 2014 when we had Stan Efforting here at the very start of the seminar that he did, he's just like, it's like there's really no secret, but if there is one secret, you need consistency and intensity. You just need to be consistent and work hard for a long period of time. And then like he did a little Q&A and we had a deadlift party and that was that. And I remember that was like one of those things that's kind of like a light bulb went off where if you could kind of, like you said, if you could stay healthy and just kind of work hard for a really long time, eventually you're going to get there. So.
Yeah, I'll give you a for instance, John, to close. Like I never, and this was never a goal of mine, but I know people like some people obsess over having abs, some people obsess over having traps. Like I was never conscious of it. It was never a goal. Like somewhere along the line, I just developed like these. I think when I started training with you, it's like 3.5 years ago. I didn't have traps, and now somewhere along the line, it just popped out. Like I now have these big traps, and I'm like, and like if I was watching for them, I never would have seen them. I wasn't, or if I was obsessing over them, I don't think it would have made any productive difference for them. But they're there. They're a byproduct of the fact that I've been consistent and just training properly and training smartly. So those things will come over time.
Yeah, I kind of noticed a similar thing when
you notice my traps. Thank you.
Your traps, yeah. When I like dieted down, because like you don't really know what's underneath, all the fat and everything. But if you increase your deadlift by like 100 pounds, you better bet, there's going to be some, raw materials that have been used to build an impressive physique underneath. So I do think it's, being strong could really help like everything. So definitely check out Thick John Wick on Instagram if you guys enjoyed. If you want more dancing and powerlifting and motivation. Thank you guys for coming on to listen to the podcast today. If it helped you, please share it. Please give it a 5-star review. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time.
And wait, before we close, I want to be the first on the podcast to congratulate my friend, my coach, my mentor, John Gaglione, for his on his engagement. Congratulations. This is a really big turning point. And there are 2 surefire things that, in the time I've known you that I know to make you smile, and that's carbs and Katie. So,
carbs and Katie, that's the secret.
Yes, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, please give it a 5-star review. You can check out the links in the description. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.